So I gave you some instructions in the meditation today that may be a little atypical. Um, we're such creatures of form. We're such creatures that are kind of really built in a certain way to look at objects out there and make things into objects that we can see and pay attention to. And so when I give you something to notice, which isn't that, sometimes the mind gets rather flustered. So, like the question or the instruction, it's not really a question, but the instruction to notice what feels the body is one such pointer. And so you'll notice what happens when you try to follow that instruction. What do you notice? Maybe we'll open that up here and I want to ask you, what happens? What did you notice when I gave that instruction? Anybody who would like to chime in? Anybody have an experience that they could describe?
Well, I said this in my share. At the beginning of the meditation, you led us into it with saying, see what you feel, see what you sense, and see what you know. Even about the legs, for example.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was quite literally following those instructions, and I intended to, because I was losing my way otherwise,
Mm-hmm.
with staying focused. So I stayed with that, and then you went further with that question. Notice what feels the body, and I had been following feeling, sensing, and knowing, as best I could for much of it. So those three senses, if I will, or those three, I don't know, nodes were quite active as I did the body scan. And a little later on, you said feeling is knowing. Did you say that?
Oh goodness, I could have. Um,
Okay.
when you say know the body, what knows the body? It's like what feels the body is really asking the same question.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. Okay.
feeling is a mode of
So,
knowing.
yeah. So I just was very moved by the koan-ness of it,
Mm-hmm.
and appreciation of there's no one really. There's no one knowing the body or feeling it or sensing it. And I just really had a very deep sense of it because of having gone through the whole body with it.
Mm-hmm.
It was a very effective beginning.
Yeah. So you had
And
that initial kind of glimpse, if I can use that word, that nothing feels the body.
yeah, I
Yeah,
did.
nothing
Yeah,
feels the body. Right. But it's an
definitely.
interesting nothing because it really does feel the
Yeah.
body.
Yep.
Yeah,
Feels like
yeah.
it might even have a shape, but I
It's
know it
not
doesn't.
clear that there's any form at all to it. I don't, nothing feels the
Yeah.
body. That's a good
Right.
answer. All right, thank you
Thank
for
you.
chiming in there. Anybody else like to say what they noticed? There's plenty of room for different experiences and different even ways of articulating it. What happened when I asked that question? Diane.
Um, I mean, I'm almost embarrassed. I feel a little embarrassed to say, but I think for me, it was just simply like a snarky little, your nervous system.
Okay.
It was just very basic.
Your mind had an answer, right? It came
That's
up
not
with a
me, but
conceptual answer.
yeah.
Right. That's fine. But I would encourage you to go back and look directly. And I'm not even sure look is the right word because it's not actually anything to see. But, the yogic way is direct and immediate. Whereas the nervous system, I wouldn't know what a nervous system is if people hadn't cut open bodies and showed us these nerves and the channels of the nerves and so forth. That's a whole conceptuality that isn't immediate. But in the immediate kind of phenomenon here we've been these bodies our whole life, right? It should be familiar in some way. And yet that question, what feels the body? What do you notice if you look directly, even just right now? What is feeling the body? And thank you for being willing to do this with the group's attention. What feels the body? So you may be stumped, and that's actually a great answer. Yes, you don't know. It's a great answer. So, Virginia, you have unmuted here. Would you like to say
Yeah.
something?
Well, when you ask that, what really typically happens for me is that as I do the body scan, what I'm feeling in each section is that I'll just say, since medically I don't know, but that my blood starts pumping in that area.
You feel pulsing. Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So, what feels the pulsing?
Oh, got me there.
Yeah. So you kind of have to stay in a moment of not knowing, and sometimes the mind will fill in, I do, but what is I? We've been using this program our whole life, but what is that actually when you look at it directly? Jim, you can unmute. Were interested in saying something.
Yeah, you can hear me?
Yeah.
All right.
Right.
So what came up for me is the great unknown. It's like nothing to hold on to here.
Mm-hmm.
No direction, no nothing.
Yeah.
And I'm not, I'm going, oh my God, I don't want to go. What do I do here?
Exactly. What do you do here?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Anyone else like to speak? Yeah, Jill.
Hey, Mark. So it's a good question. And I know that awareness feels my body,
Mhm.
and that awareness could be in my body and around my body.
Mhm.
And sometimes I feel that. But when you say what feels your body, I don't necessarily experience that.
Mhm.
Even though
So
I
is
know
your answer kind of coming from a conceptual place? I know that awareness feels the body.
sometimes not. Sometimes I feel that.
Okay, sometimes you actually notice awareness. Can you say what that's like?
Right, because that's so hard to put into words, right?
It is absolutely hard to put into words.
Which is why you're asking us.
Yes, why I'm asking you, yes. It's partly to stump you, it's partly to stop the
Okay.
mind, but it's also, I think it's useful to try to put words around this experience because it's so important.
It is, and it's really hard to put words to.
Mhm.
I don't know that I can, actually.
All right. Okay, well, thanks.
Thank Thank you.
Giving it a try. Yeah, so as I said, we're so oriented to form, to having an object out there to pay attention to. And so this instruction that throws you back to like noticing, having awareness notice itself can be a strange experience. And it's not about just coming up with an answer, because that might be just conceptual. But it's an actual experience where awareness wakes up to itself. And that doesn't necessarily happen all at once. It, has to be invited. It's a little like there's a sleepiness in us. Like you get up in the morning, and you have to rub your eyes and you're not quite all there. There's a sort of sleepiness in us around what we actually are, what's actually here. And so the question starts to wake that up. What is that? And so when we practice and we bring our attention into here and now, we start with the things in some way that are easier to pay attention to. The breath, the body, the touch sensations of the body, or the sounds, the sights. But we've kind of come into here and now in a certain way because sensations are always here and now. And the body in this way is a gateway. It's a gateway to what is. And yet it's also, as a gateway, it's something you can walk through to an even more profound experience of being able to rest as awareness, knowing itself. So at this point, I'm just suggesting this. I would encourage you to keep coming back to it. And as I talk about it, you can keep trying it out. It's like, what does feel the body? What is this? And as JP said, and as Jim said as well, it's nothing. Part of what it makes so difficult about this is that there's a certain kind of nothing that's feeling the body. It's a very interesting nothing. When you say nothing feels the body, it sounds like you're completely comatose. So it's a special kind of nothing that feels the body. The formless, it looks like nothing because there's no form there. And yet it's a funny kind of nothing. It's a nothing that's cognizant. It's a nothing that is able to have experience. We are a nothing that's able to have experiences. A here and now awareness that has experiences flowing through it. And to some degree, Vipassana meditation is training you to watch all of the experiences flowing through it. But it's doing that in a way so that gradually, the more that you notice all the experiences flowing through awareness, you might suddenly get a glimpse of what it's flowing through, what all these experiences are flowing through. And I think as Jim also alluded, there's something a little scary about this. We've invested so much of our energy in creating an identity for ourselves, precisely to avoid this nothingness that we are. We have a whole story about ourselves, about everything we've done, about our personality, and we have a whole lot of memories to show for ourselves. We might even have plans for the future to show for ourselves. And all of this gives a certain kind of content to what we are. And we kind of become immersed in it. We even defend it. We defend if anybody in some way will besmirch our identity, say something negative about us, or question it. But it's as if in the midst of the flow of experience, we've started to grab onto things that can make ourselves feel real. Okay, I know who I am because of this. I know who I am because of this. I know who I am because of this. And what I'm pointing to is the background, which is so liberating to feel and to know, which is rather than being these things out of the stream of experience that you've grabbed a hold of and you're holding on to create a sense of yourself, that actually you are nothing. You are, I sometimes call it a space of knowing, although even space is maybe a little bit off, but it works. It's kind of helpful because space is formless. As we walk through our house, the space itself is relatively formless, even though it's formed by the walls and the floor and all these sorts of objects we can pay attention to. The space has no form. And so our awareness is like that sort of thing. It's like space. It's formless. And so there's really three different words that I think are really helpful for identifying this. Emptiness is one that was already used. Another word, just a different metaphor, is silence. We are a silence. What is it that allows us to hear sound? What is it allows us to receive these words? It's because something that we are is this receptive silence into which those words fall and their meanings fall and they're known. It's kind of a wondrous, mysterious experience when you notice it. But even now, as I'm talking, you may be able to see directly what I'm talking about, that there is a silence in you, not just the silence of the fact you're not speaking right now. There's silence that's kind of like the absence of sound. But this is a different kind of silence, just as the emptiness of awareness is a different kind of emptiness. It's not just the absence of sound. It's something that's formless, that receives sound and knows sound as it passes through. And again, I'm making a metaphor because I have to, that things pass through in a sort of stream. Another kind of word that's, I think, very helpful in pointing to this is stillness. Stillness. So there's the stillness of the body when the body's not moving. Okay, that's a kind of a stillness of form. And maybe your house right now is not moving unless you consider the fact that it's attached to a planet that's spinning and speeding through space around the sun, and the sun is in its own way rotating around the galaxy, and the galaxy is expanding out, doing God what else. And but yes, there's a stillness, which is what knows the body, is a stillness. It receives the movement. It allows the movement to be known as movement. It's what allows change to be recognized as change. Something is still, that what it's noticing is still. It's utterly still. Its nature is stillness. So I'm talking about this, and I'm having to use words. And in some way, this could just be met by your head. But I invite you not to just listen to this with your head. Listen to it from a deeper place. Let some of what I'm saying go right by your conceptual mind to something inside which may recognize I'm talking about it. It's sort of like it goes, oh, wow. He knows that I'm real. He knows that I'm here. If I can put kind of human words to it, it doesn't have those human words, but it's sort of like something begins to respond inside when it's talked about in this way. This silence that we are, this stillness that we are, this nothing, which is a strange kind of knowing nothing, a nothing that is able to be cognizant of what's happening. And so as you begin to perhaps get a glimmer of just the awareness of awareness, this is like a font of rest that opens up. If you can at all feel, it has a feeling tone. It has a feeling tone. It has a feeling tone of peace and stillness. Presence is another word. I use that word a lot. And so we're actually like circling around and actually letting presence wake up to itself. The presence that we are, letting that begin to wake up to itself. And it provides a different kind of ballast to your meditation. Without it, it can sort of feel like there's somebody inside who's trying really hard to focus your attention on something, you know? When you touch this, when you touch awareness itself, it's kind of the end of trying. End of trying. There's a possibility of resting as this and letting it notice everything that's here. Try it. Notice awareness. Notice this nothingness. It's feeling the body. Or perhaps you even notice it's looking out of the eyes. It's another question I can ask. What is looking out of your eyes? And if you go to that, what is looking out of your eyes? What happens? This emptiness appears. There's like a vast, empty presence, which is unknowable. And that's kind of a earth-shattering thing to recognize. That what is actually looking out of your eyes, what is actually feeling your body, what's actually hearing in your ears is unknowable in itself. And yet, in some ways, it's the most essential thing of all. It's the basis for there being experience at all. Pretty cool, really. When you begin to be this, everything becomes miraculous. Suddenly you realize that everything is in consciousness. All these objects, all these things that are seen are actually in this vast nothingness of awareness. And they're made of nothing but that either. We're talking here about the direct experience. And the world becomes wondrous. Simple things become miraculous. That they're here at all. That they're here at all. And their beingness starts to shine. You know, even this silly computer that's here in front of me. When I sit as awareness, its very presence is amazing. It's luminous. It's actually, in a certain sense, made of light and shadow, color, and a kind of shape that all that creates. But there's something truly wondrous about it in its presence. And I'm not a big fan of the computer as a personality, Isn't like the place I want to be spending all my time, though it often seems like it is. It seems to demand more and more of my time. But that's relating to it in a kind of a different way. When I strip that away and I'm actually just able to sit as this pure openness, which might be a nicer word for emptiness. Emptiness scares people sometimes. Oh, I don't want to be empty. So openness. There's just an openness here to experience. There's an openness to knowing, which is sitting still. Again, sitting is a metaphor. Sitting still amidst the flow of experience. So as my words flow, as my hands move, as you squirm in your seat and your body moves, as everything moves, there's a stillness of this cognizant, this knowing, this experience as it passes through. It's truly amazing. And it kind of makes me want to go like this, really, like a bow, and to surrender the mind in a certain way, which is what a bow in some way symbolizes. To surrender the conceptual mind to this which is really beyond concept. Somehow or another we've managed to find words to talk about it. But there's really no concept that's adequate to what awareness is. And so we've got this word for it, awareness. Maybe we'll throw in some synonyms. Consciousness, though I could use that slightly differently. Openness, empty, cognizance, all those sorts of things we can use as words. But when you really step into the experience, the words fail to do it justice. Which is why I'm so much interested in having you have the direct experience. Maybe from another perspective, we'll say, oh, this is our nervous system that's doing this. Fine. But from the yogic point of view, which is always from right in the experience itself, this shift is really important. It has the capacity to free our hearts from the things that make us suffer, which has everything to do with the way that we grab on to certain things in the flow of our experience and try to create an identity out of them, try to create a sense of me-ness, and out of what's mine and who I am, and all of these sorts of things. We try to create a little nodule of a sense of identity. And that sense of identity is always fragile because it doesn't really exist. It's kind of a construction. It is a construction. It's something we've put together. And, I'm not saying that's bad. It's helpful going through the world. When people ask who you are, please don't tell them you're empty cognizance. Give them a name. Give them a few identifying characteristics, like what you do for a living or where you live. That's how we human beings function. You don't have to be weird. However, it doesn't matter how much you're in the trance of that, how much that really has occupied you, your mental resume, and your sense of who you are in the world and what other people see you as in the world. we've kind of invested heavily in that. You know, it's kind of like the inner stock market. We put our investments in these ideas about ourselves and the things that have happened to us and the things we've done and the things we're going to do. And that's entirely human. And you can't live a human life without doing that. Believe me, I'm not trying to live a human life without doing that. But waking up is different. You can wake up out of that. And when you wake up out of that, it has a different sort of freedom to it. And so what I'm pointing to as, you know, the well of being, ironically, has this quality of nothing to it. It has this quality of pure spaciousness and openness. And, you know, the word empty can be deceiving. Don't take it too conceptually. It's not empty. It's a fullness. And when your heart is full, you'll see what I mean. When your heart is full of love, this openness is not in any sense empty. And what's meeting this experience, this stillness, this presence, doesn't feel empty. So again, don't fixate on that word. Keep noticing the experience. Keep noticing the experience. So I'm going to stop here and see what people have to say.